The world is loud now. Opinions everywhere. Judgments flowing without effort. Approval handed out in small, addictive doses. Likes, nods, smiles, acceptance. And in the middle of this noise stands the modern man, restless, uncertain, scanning the faces around him, asking silently, "Am I enough?" This is where the hunger begins. Not hunger for food, not hunger for achievement, but hunger for permission. Many men wake up each day already negotiating their worth with the world. They speak softly, not because they are peaceful, but because they are afraid. They agree not because they are wise, but because disagreement threatens the fragile image they are trying to protect. Their sense of self does not live inside them, it lives in the reactions of others. And so their lives become performances. From the outside, it looks harmless, polite, considerate, nice. But beneath the surface, something essential is decaying. Because a man who needs approval is a man who has abandoned his center. Approval seeking is not a personality trait. It is a survival strategy. At some point, often early, a boy learns that being himself is risky. Maybe strength was punished. Maybe curiosity was mocked. Maybe silence was safer than honesty. So he adapts. He reads the room. He learns what earns smiles and what earns rejection. Slowly, unconsciously, he trades authenticity for acceptance. This is not weakness at first, it is intelligence. But what saves the boy eventually poisons the man. A grown man who still needs approval lives externally. His emotions are reactive, his confidence fluctuates with feedback. When praised, he rises. When ignored, he collapses. He does not ask, "What do I believe?" He asks, "What will they think?" This is the root of weakness. Not lack of strength, not lack of intelligence, but lack of inner authority. The Stoics warned about this centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a man should not depend on the applause of others, because the crowd is unstable and easily pleased by shallow things. When your worth depends on approval, your soul becomes a hostage, and hostages do not act freely. Approval-seeking men avoid friction. They avoid truth if truth risks rejection. They dilute their opinions, soften their edges, and betray their instincts, all to maintain connection. But the connection they preserve is false. It is built on performance, not presence. And deep down, they know it. That knowledge creates anxiety, a constant low-level tension. Because when your identity is externally sourced, it can be taken away at any moment. One disagreement, one mistake, one honest sentence spoken too clearly. So these men stay agreeable, predictable, safe. But safety is not strength. A man without an internal compass becomes dependent on the emotional weather around him. He becomes easy to manipulate, easy to shame, easy to control. He mistakes being liked for being respected and sacrifices the latter for the former. Carl Jung would call this a failure to integrate the self. The man has disowned his shadow, his assertiveness, his aggression, his boundaries, because those traits once threatened his belonging. Instead of mastering them, he buried them. And buried power does not disappear. It leaks out as resentment, passivity, and quiet self-contempt. This is the tragedy. The approval-seeking man is not peaceful. He is suppressed. He smiles while betraying himself. He nods while his gut tightens. He says yes while something inside him says no. Over time, this creates a fracture. The outer man, the agreeable one, and the inner man, the silenced one, drift apart. And when a man is divided against himself, he grows weak, not because he lacks force, but because his force is turned inward. He becomes tired, bitter, cynical. He watches other men who speak plainly, who take up space, who risk disapproval, and he calls them arrogant. But beneath the judgment is envy, because they are free in a way he is not. Freedom requires the willingness to stand alone. Weak men seek approval because they fear isolation more than they fear self-betrayal. They would rather be accepted as a version of themselves that is false than rejected for who they truly are. But strength begins at the moment a man reverses that equation, when he decides that self-respect matters more than applause, that truth matters more than comfort, that silence is better than dishonest agreement. This decision is not loud, it is quiet, and it is terrifying. Because the moment you stop seeking approval, you risk losing it. Some people will withdraw, some will resist, some will reveal that they never knew you, only the mask. That loss hurts, but it is also the first honest pain a man feels. And honest pain is the soil where strength grows. A man who no longer needs approval does not become cruel. He becomes grounded. He listens, but he does not bend. He respects others, but he does not abandon himself. His worth is no longer negotiated. It is assumed, not because he is better, but because he is whole. This is the beginning. Not of dominance, not of ego, but of inner solidity. The hunger for approval fades when a man learns to stand in his own presence without flinching, when he becomes someone he respects, even if no one is watching. And that is where real strength starts to form. Fear is rarely honest about its name. It does not introduce itself as fear. It disguises itself as kindness, as politeness, as being easygoing. The approval-seeking man is not driven by love for harmony. He is driven by terror of rejection, of tension, of standing alone with an unpopular truth. So he learns to soften everything, his voice, his opinions, his boundaries, until nothing sharp remains. And sharpness is not cruelty. Sharpness is clarity. A man who cannot tolerate conflict cannot tolerate himself. Because conflict is the moment where identity is tested, where values collide, where you must decide who you are, even if it costs you connection. Weak men avoid these moments. They say, "It's not worth arguing." What they mean is, "I don't trust myself to survive disapproval. I'm afraid of emotional discomfort." Kindness has strength behind it. Niceness is a strategy. It is a way to manage the emotions of others so you don't have to face your own. Jordan Peterson often speaks about this. How men confuse being harmless with being good. But a harmless man is not virtuous. He is merely incapable. Goodness requires the capacity to say no, to draw lines, to confront when necessary. Without that capacity, a man is not moral, he is compliant. Fear of conflict also erodes respect. Not immediately, quietly, subtly. People may like the agreeable man, but they do not rely on him. They sense that he will bend under pressure, that he will choose comfort over truth when it matters. And deep down, he senses it too. This creates a vicious cycle. The less he respects himself, the more he seeks approval to compensate. The more he seeks approval, the more he betrays himself. The more he betrays himself, the weaker he feels. So he doubles down on niceness. He becomes overly accommodating, overly apologetic. He explains himself too much. He asks permission for things that do not require permission. His presence shrinks. His voice lowers at the end of sentences, turning statements into questions. And resentment begins to grow, because every suppressed no becomes anger. Every unspoken boundary becomes bitterness. Every swallowed truth becomes weight on the chest. The man smiles, but inside he is keeping score. Resentment is the shadow of fear. Carl Jung warned that whatever we do not confront within ourselves will appear in our lives as fate. The approval-seeking man's fate is quiet frustration. He attracts people who take advantage of him, not because they are evil, but because he teaches them how to treat him. Fear teaches people how to use you. The irony is this: the man who avoids conflict to preserve connection often loses connection anyway. Because real intimacy requires honesty, and honesty requires risk. When a man never reveals his edges, others never truly meet him. They meet a performance. And performances are forgettable. Strength is not loud aggression. It is calm willingness to withstand tension without collapsing, to let silence exist after you speak truth, to endure someone's disappointment without rushing to fix it. Weak men rush to fix discomfort. Strong men let it breathe. This does not mean becoming confrontational or cruel. It means becoming solid. A man with inner strength can disagree without hatred. He can disappoint without panic. He can stand firm without shouting. But that capacity is forged only by walking through fear, not around it. The first time a man chooses honesty over approval, his body will react, heart racing, throat tight, old instincts screaming danger. This is not a sign of weakness. It is the nervous system recalibrating. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something matters more than fear. When a man stops hiding behind niceness, he may lose some approval. Some relationships were built entirely on his compliance. When that disappears, so do they. That loss feels personal. But what is lost was never connection. It was dependence. And in its place, something stronger begins to form. Respect from others and from himself. Fear shrinks a man until he fits inside other people's expectations. Facing fear expands him back into his own shape. The weak man seeks approval to avoid conflict. The strong man accepts conflict to preserve integrity, and integrity, once reclaimed, becomes a kind of quiet armor. Not against others, but against self-betrayal. This is the turning point. At the center of every strong man is something invisible, a still point, an inner axis. When that center is missing, the man drifts. This is the hidden cost of approval seeking, the erosion of identity. Not all at once, slowly, decision by decision, concession by concession, until the man no longer knows where he ends and the world begins. He becomes adaptable, flexible, socially skilled, and inwardly hollow. A man without an internal compass does not choose his values, he borrows them. He mirrors the room. Around ambitious people, he speaks of goals. Around cynical people, he mocks hope. Around strong personalities, he shrinks. Around weaker ones, he performs confidence. But none of it is anchored. This shape-shifting feels like survival, but it creates a quiet panic. Because if you are always adjusting to others, you never arrive anywhere. There is no solid ground beneath your feet. Only movement, only reaction, and reaction is not living. Friedrich Nietzsche warned of this man, the one who becomes the last man, comfortable, agreeable, risk-averse, and internally empty, not because life crushed him, but because he never stood for anything long enough to be shaped by it. Identity requires friction. You do not discover who you are by being liked. You discover who you are by being tested. Approval-seeking men avoid tests. They avoid situations where their values might cost them something. They choose harmony over honesty, belonging over belief. Over time, this avoidance creates confusion. They ask themselves, why do I feel lost? But the answer is simple. You cannot feel grounded in a self you never inhabit. The lost center shows up everywhere. In relationships, the man becomes dependent. He lets his partner define his emotional weather. If she is pleased, he is calm. If she withdraws, he unravels. Love becomes anxiety, not connection. In work, he becomes cautious. He waits for direction. He fears standing out. He wants reassurance before acting. Leadership feels impossible, not because he lacks intelligence, but because leadership requires decision without consensus. Even in solitude, he is restless. Silence becomes uncomfortable. Without external feedback, he does not know who he is supposed to be. So he distracts himself. Noise, screens, endless input, anything to avoid sitting with the emptiness. This is not a failure of character. It is a failure of development. Carl Jung would say the man has not individuated. He has not separated his true self from the collective. He lives in the expectations of others rather than the demands of his own soul. And the soul always demands something. When ignored, it does not go quiet, it goes numb. A man who has lost his center often feels tired without reason, unmotivated, irritable. He senses that something is wrong, but cannot name it. He blames circumstances, other people, the world. But the truth is closer. He has outsourced his authority. An internally anchored man does not need constant validation because he knows where he stands. His values are clear. His boundaries are defined. His direction may change, but his axis remains. This does not make him rigid. It makes him coherent. Coherence is power. When your actions align with your values, energy returns. When your words match your beliefs, confidence stabilizes. When your choices reflect who you are, anxiety loosens its grip. The approval-seeking man lacks this alignment. His outer life contradicts his inner truth, and contradiction drains life force. To reclaim the center, a man must begin making small, unpopular decisions. Speaking when silence would be easier. Saying no when yes would preserve comfort. Choosing solitude over false belonging. At first, this feels like loss. You will feel misunderstood, unseen, misjudged. Good. Those feelings mean you are no longer hiding. Identity is not built through self-expression alone. It is built through self-commitment, through repeated acts of loyalty to your own values, especially when no one applauds. The center strengthens every time a man chooses truth over approval, every time he resists the urge to explain himself, every time he allows others to be disappointed without rushing to repair it. Slowly, something shifts. He stops asking, "How do I appear?" and starts asking, "Is this aligned?" This is the difference between performance and presence. The man with a center does not dominate rooms. He grounds them. His words carry weight because they come from somewhere real. He is not trying to convince, he is expressing. And expression rooted in integrity is magnetic. Weak men seek approval because they have no center to return to. Strong men can stand alone because they are already standing on something. That something is not ego, it is self-trust. And once a man rebuilds that, he is no longer lost, even in silence. Every man carries a shadow, not a metaphorical one, an internal one. It is made of everything he was told not to be. Anger, assertiveness, desire, ambition, the will to dominate his own life. For many men, these traits were labeled dangerous early on. Too loud, too much, too selfish. So they learned to hide them. The approval-seeking man is often the most shadowed. On the surface, he appears controlled, agreeable, and moral. But beneath that surface lives a suppressed force, resentment, envy, quiet rage. Not because he is bad, but because he has denied parts of himself for too long. Carl Jung warned that the shadow does not disappear when ignored. It waits. And when it finally emerges, it does so sideways, through passive aggression, sarcasm, self-sabotage, or sudden emotional collapse. The nice guy is rarely nice inside. He keeps mental records, he gives with expectation, he sacrifices, hoping it will be noticed. And when it isn't, the disappointment cuts deep. He feels used, invisible, unappreciated. But what he is really feeling is betrayal by himself. Approval-seeking trains a man to trade honesty for acceptance. Over time, this creates a distorted ego. Outwardly humble, inwardly entitled. He believes his compliance should earn him love. When it doesn't, the world feels unjust. This is the psychology of the pleaser. The pleaser believes he is good because he suppresses his needs. But virtue is not self-erasure. It is self-mastery. Suppression is not mastery. It is avoidance. A man who cannot access his aggression cannot protect his boundaries. A man who cannot express desire cannot pursue meaning. A man who cannot tolerate being disliked cannot lead, so his shadow grows heavier. He watches others take risks, speak boldly, claim space, and he criticizes them. Not because they are wrong, but because they are free. Their freedom exposes his captivity. This is why approval-seeking men often moralize weakness. They call assertiveness toxic, ambition ego, strength oppression. It is easier to condemn what you are afraid to embody. Nietzsche saw this clearly. He warned of slave morality, the transformation of impotence into virtue. When a man cannot act, He redefines not acting as goodness, but deep down, the body knows the truth. The suppressed parts demand expression. If not consciously integrated, they erupt unconsciously. A man who never says no may explode over something small. A man who avoids conflict may sabotage relationships. A man who denies ambition may sink into apathy or addiction. This is not mystery, it is psychology. Integrating the shadow does not mean becoming cruel or domineering. It means reclaiming the capacity to be dangerous and choosing not to be. Strength that is never accessed is not strength, it is fragility. A man must know he can say no, that he can walk away, that he can confront. Only then is his kindness real. The pleaser's ego is fragile because it is dependent. It needs affirmation to survive. When challenged, it collapses or lashes out. The integrated man's ego is stable because it is grounded in self-knowledge. He knows his capacity for force and therefore controls it. This is why strong men are often calm, not because they lack intensity, but because they have made peace with it. They do not fear their own edge. Approval-seeking men fear their edge because it threatens belonging. But belonging that requires self-mutilation is not belonging. It is captivity. The work is uncomfortable. It requires revisiting moments where you swallowed your truth, where you chose being liked over being honest, not to shame yourself, but to reclaim the parts you abandoned. It requires practicing small acts of assertiveness, saying what you mean without apology, letting others react without managing their emotions, feeling the surge of anxiety, and staying present through it. This is how the shadow integrates, not by denial, but by ownership. When a man integrates his shadow, his need for approval weakens. He no longer needs constant reassurance because he is no longer hiding from himself. His energy returns, his posture changes, his voice steadies. He becomes congruent, and congruence is threatening to a world built on performance. Some will resist it, some will test it, some will attempt to pull him back into old roles. Let them. A man who has faced his shadow is no longer controlled by the fear of disapproval. He has seen what lies beneath the mask and survived. And once you survive that, you no longer need permission to exist. There is a quiet lie many men live by. That being liked is the same as being respected. It isn't. Approval is cheap. Respect is earned. Weak men chase approval because it offers immediate relief. A smile, a nod, a sense of safety. Respect, on the other hand, is delayed. It often arrives wrapped in discomfort. Sometimes it arrives only after loss. So most men choose the easier currency. But approval has no weight. You can be approved of and still be ignored. You can be liked and still be dismissed. You can be welcomed and still not be trusted. Approval makes people comfortable, but comfort is not what builds gravity. Respect is built when a man demonstrates that he will not abandon his principles under pressure, that he cannot be easily moved, that his yes means something because his no exists. A man who seeks approval signals weakness without speaking. His flexibility reads as instability. His constant accommodation reads as lack of conviction. People may enjoy him, but they do not anchor to him. And anchoring is what respect does. It gives others something solid to lean against. Strength does not come from domination. It comes from coherence, from the alignment between a man's words, actions, and values. When those three move together, others feel it, even if they disagree, especially if they disagree. The approval-seeking man avoids disagreement because he equates it with rejection, but disagreement is often the birthplace of respect. When you hold your ground calmly, without hostility, without pleading, you signal maturity. You show that your identity is not fragile. This is why strong men are not universally liked. They do not aim to be. They aim to be true. And truth inevitably creates tension. It separates. It clarifies. Jesus was not approved of. Socrates was not approved of. Marcus Aurelius was respected, not because he pleased, but because he stood. Weak men want consensus before commitment. Strong men commit first and let consensus form or fall away. There is a loneliness that comes with this, a clean loneliness, one that feels heavy at first, then peaceful. It is the loneliness of standing upright while others sit comfortably in compromise. This loneliness is not punishment, it is initiation. A man who chooses respect over approval must accept that not everyone will stay. Some relationships exist only because you were agreeable. When that agreement ends, so does the bond. Let it. What remains will be real. The shift from approval to respect changes how a man speaks. He stops over-explaining. He stops defending every decision. He stops seeking emotional permission. His sentences become statements, not questions. Not because he is arrogant, but because he is settled. Settled men do not rush. They allow silence after speaking. They let others process. They do not fill space with justification. They trust that what needed to be said has been said. This creates presence. Presence is rare, and rare things command respect. A man who no longer needs to be liked becomes dangerous in the best way. Not to others, but to mediocrity, to manipulation, to guilt-based control. He cannot be easily shamed because he is no longer negotiating his worth. This does not make him cold. It makes him warm without being porous. He can care without collapsing. He can listen without surrendering. He can love without disappearing. Strength is not hardness. It is boundaries with a heart. And boundaries are impossible when approval is the goal. The man who chooses respect accepts a harder road. Fewer cheers, more silence. But in that silence, something solid forms, a sense of self that does not evaporate when challenged. This is why strong men sleep better, why their decisions feel lighter, why their lives feel directed. They are no longer pulled by every opinion. They are pulled by principle, and principle does not clap. It waits. The weak man seeks approval because he wants to be held by the world. The strong man stands so the world can lean, if it chooses. And if it doesn't, he stands anyway. There comes a moment, quiet, unannounced, when a man realizes that seeking approval has cost him too much. Not all at once, but in fragments. In the times he stayed silent and later felt ashamed. In the opportunities he avoided because someone might disapprove. In the relationships where he was present, but not real. This realization does not arrive with anger. It arrives with clarity. The man begins to see that approval never gave him safety. It only delayed discomfort, and delayed discomfort always returns, with interest. So the work begins. Not a dramatic transformation, not a public declaration, but an internal shift. Reclaiming inner authority starts with responsibility. Not for others' feelings, but for your own alignment. A man stops asking, "How will this be received?" and starts asking, "Is this honest?" This question changes everything. He begins with small acts, declining invitations he doesn't want, speaking plainly instead of strategically, letting others misunderstand him without rushing to correct the image. Each act feels heavy at first. The old fear rises, the body tightens, the urge to smooth things over returns. And this is where strength is forged, not in the absence of fear, but in staying present while it passes. A man who reclaims inner authority accepts that discomfort is not danger, that disapproval is not death, that solitude is not failure. He learns to sit in the tension without collapsing. Slowly, his nervous system recalibrates. What once felt unbearable becomes tolerable, then normal, then irrelevant. He stops performing, and something remarkable happens. His words begin to carry weight, not because he speaks louder, but because he speaks from conviction. His presence stabilizes. His decisions feel clean. He no longer needs to announce boundaries. His behavior enforces them. This is what it means to stand on your own ground. The world tests this man. Old patterns return. People push. They guilt. They question. Some accuse him of changing, of becoming cold, of becoming selfish. He does not argue. He lets them believe what they need to believe. Because a man rooted in inner authority does not require understanding, only self-respect. This does not make him isolated. It makes his connections intentional. He chooses relationships where truth is allowed, where disagreement does not threaten belonging, where respect flows both ways. These relationships are fewer, but they are real. The weak man seeks approval to feel alive. The strong man lives and lets approval come or go. This is the final reversal. When a man no longer needs to be chosen, he becomes choosable. When he no longer begs for validation, his presence invites it naturally. When he stops asking permission to exist, he becomes impossible to ignore, not because he demands attention, but because he embodies coherence. Inner authority is not control over others, it is command over oneself, and that command is quiet, steady, unshakable. It is the voice that says, "I know who I am, even if you don't." It is the posture that remains upright, even when alone. It is the peace that follows integrity. This is the man who no longer chases approval. He walks his path. He carries his values. He stands, whether witnessed or not. And that is strength. Slow down now. Let the noise fade. There is no crowd here, no judgment, no audience waiting to respond. Only you, standing in the quiet space where excuses dissolve and truth remains. You were never meant to be approved of by everyone. No man of substance ever was. You were meant to become someone you could respect when the room was empty and the lights were off. Approval is fleeting. It follows trends, moods, convenience. Integrity endures. The world will always reward compliance in small ways. Comfort, inclusion, temporary safety. But it rarely rewards courage immediately. Courage is paid in solitude first, and meaning later. Do not rush this process. Strength grows slowly, like bone under pressure, like roots in darkness. Every time you choose honesty over harmony, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Every time you hold your ground without anger, you step further into your own authority. You do not need to announce this change. You do not need to defend it. You only need to live it. Let people misunderstand you. Let silence follow your truth. Let discomfort teach you what comfort never could. One day, you will notice something subtle. You no longer check faces after you speak. You no longer feel the need to explain who you are. You no longer feel smaller in the presence of others. You are simply here, grounded, clear, present. This is not dominance. This is dignity. And dignity does not seek approval. It stands.